Our second speaker is Courtney Edwards, who is also a G4, so in the same class as Aisha in our program as well. And she'll tell you a bit about her story. Go for it, Courtney.
All right, thank you. So today, as I was kind of formulating this presentation and going through like, what is my story? I've never told my entire story, to someone before. I kind of found that the theme of my journey is that it hasn't been linear. So I really want this to be an honest um, kind of narrative of how I got to where I am. And I hope that in it, you guys can see that there may be things that you're struggling with right now or that you're totally unsure of, feeling nervous about. And that's okay because it will be worked out. But everyone's journey is not so cut and dry. So I hope that you'll get that sense from my talk today. And it's just a little bit of a quick intro of where I am now. I'm also a G4, with Aisha, and I'm in cancer biology in Rochelle Johnson's lab. So the first half of this will be what I've titled my personal journey, and it's really kind of everything up until getting to Vanderbilt. So a little bit about who I am and where I come from. So, here's a picture of me as a baby because I feel like you just kind of have to put that in there. So I'm originally from Greensboro, North Carolina, born and raised. I went to high school at the Early College at Guilford for anyone that's from the area. Here's my family. So I'm going to get to why this is important that I'm explaining it. But my dad, his career is in business, and he graduated from North Carolina Central University, which is in North Carolina, and it's a historically Black university. My mom is a registered nurse, and she also graduated from North Carolina Central. Um, and then my sister is a hospital chaplain, kind of spiritual counselor, and she did her undergrad at Wake Forest, but earned her Master's of Divinity from Howard University, which is another historically Black university. Um, so I'm going to tie up why I mention all that in just a second, but throughout my presentation, I kind of put in a few sticky notes. I really love sticky notes. If you know me, I write stuff down all over the place as just reminders, encouragement, reminders, whatever. So the first thing that I want to kind of highlight is that you don't have to come from generations of physicians and scientists in order to pursue this career. So, my mom is in nursing, so she's in medicine. My dad is in business, and I think maybe one other family member has a PhD, but I don't have any doctors in my family. So it's okay if you are the first one, and it'll be challenging, but there's a lot of people to support you. And so you should be encouraged to pursue this career if that's what you want to do, even if you may be the first to do it in your family. Um, sorry, the second reason, my second point of the sticky note related to the HBCUs, I'm going to come back to on the next slide. So for undergrad, I went to Hampton University in Hampton, Virginia, which is a historically Black university. And I originally entered as a pre-med student, and I point that out, and it'll become more evident later why, you know, things don't always go as I originally planned. But I ended up graduating with a bachelor's of science in biochemistry, and then I added on a minor in leadership studies. So, the title of my talk is My Not So Linear Journey. So I entered as a pre-med student at Hampton. So, I matriculated into college in 2012. At some point, I would have had to declare my major, so I figured it would be biology. That's pretty much what every pre-med student does. I, complete the graduation requirements, pre-med requirements, blah, blah, blah. I'd get a degree. At some point, I would apply to medical school, and then I would graduate 4 years later, and then eventually start medical school. And that was kind of that linear path that I figured, I would just go through the steps and I would do it and I would go to medical school. Disclaimer, that's not how things went. So before I move on, my sticky note And why I keep emphasizing the historically Black universities is that you can and you will be successful in your career, whether you attend a small liberal arts college, an HBCU, a state school, a research university, maybe you went to a 2-year program and then transferred into a 4-year program. So I just want to like talk to people because I know that, you know, many of you are at HBCUs, you may be at smaller colleges. I've got a student at Berea in my lab right now. So just know that you don't have to go to a major research institution to still have a competitive application and to still be able to be highly successful, you know, throughout college and once you transition to graduate school. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat and then we'll just get to them at the end. So here we go to the meat of this talk, which is how my journey has been far from linear. So we'll start with what I call my undergraduate reality check. Because remember, I went in thinking pre-med biology, I'll hit the points on the timeline, and then I'll be done in 4 years and go to medical school. Sorry. Okay, so I matriculated into college in 2012. And pretty soon I declared my major. So that was in biology, and at Hampton, there are 2 different biology tracks. So I picked the cellular track with a pre-med focus, because that's what pretty much anyone did if they were thinking about going to medical school. But I realized really early on that I was totally uninterested in some of the coursework. For instance, botany, which is a requirement of the degree, but I was like, oh my gosh, this is totally not for me and not relevant to what I wanted to do. Sometime in my freshman year, I also joined an undergraduate research lab in microbiology. 1000% not interested. Not that I didn't want to be motivated, but it was just not, it wasn't for me. You know, it wasn't clinically relevant, or at least I couldn't see how it was. And I just felt like I was showing up to just do work. So yeah, things that are in orange are kind of they're my side steps. They're things that happened that I didn't anticipate, things that were thrown at me, challenges, side steps, whatever. Just not the linear track that I anticipated. So I ended up switching my major to biochemistry, kind of towards the end of my freshman year, I guess. And then I added on the minor in leadership studies. And I have to say, with the biochem coursework, I was much more interested in, you know, the coursework itself. So my summer after freshman year, I was like, well, I better do something. You know, I don't want to just go home and sit around. So I actually applied and was accepted into the VSSA program here at Vanderbilt back in 2013. And I worked with Dr. Tricia Thornton-Wells. And this actually should be in orange, but one thing that I realized was that computational research is just not for me. My hat's off to everyone who does it, but it wasn't for me. And that's okay, because it's important to learn what you don't like just as much as it's important to learn what you are passionate about. But I did get a co-authorship on a manuscript, so it was still a really productive summer, and I loved the mentors. Dr. Thornton Wells, my MSTP mentor. I had a great summer, just couldn't do dry lab stuff. So I went through sophomore year, everything was fine, biochemistry went well. In the summer of 2014, that summer really threw me a hard one. So in April, I found out that I was rejected from every single summer research and clinical experience program that I applied to. Mind you, I had been accepted at Vanderbilt the year before. I'd also been accepted to programs at like UPenn, other places. So I thought, you know, I'm a pretty strong applicant. Had excellent grades. Like, I don't know what it was, but I got rejected from them all. So I was kind of in a panic. Like, what am I going to do this summer? You know, in May, an opportunity totally came out of the blue. So I found out that our university got a grant for the Maximizing Access to Research Careers program, which is an NIH program targeted towards underrepresented minorities in science. And so it was the first year they did it. We were the pilot group, but I applied and was accepted, after getting all these rejections. And so I was like, great, now what do I do with this? Like, what can I do going forward? And so thankfully through that program, I was placed at Duke University for their summer research opportunities program, um, working in the lab of Dr. Gayatri Devi. So this was just out of the blue thrown at me. She's a breast cancer research. I had never done anything related to breast cancer. I mean, my grandmother had breast cancer, but otherwise I had no connection. I was doing microbiology before, but I was thrown in the lab and honestly ended up loving it. So my passion for breast cancer research and just cancer research in general happened to be by chance, but I'm so thankful for the opportunity to have gone through the MARC program, and been placed at Duke, where I was exposed to this, research path that I was like, this is more the type of research that I want to do. This is what I'm passionate about. It's super clinically relevant, and I need to do more of this. And during the summer, it was also a really pivotal summer too, because I learned about the career as a physician scientist and an MD PhD for the very first time. I had never heard of a physician scientist before. So during that summer, I literally talked to everybody that I could. And that's what I will encourage you to do. If you're not sure if you want to do an MD or a PhD, you need to talk to people in those careers, find out how they got there, what degree do they have, what are they doing in their career now, and just kind of see if any of their journey matches up with what you think you might want to do, because you won't know until you just talk to people who do it. So we're now in my junior year of college. Things are going fine in terms of biochemistry. I took the MCAT and I was not happy with my score the first time. It was pretty low for MD PhD applicants and probably was pretty borderline for most medical schools. So that was a huge bummer after going through months and months of studying. I'm in a room with automatic light. I'm sorry. I've been sitting down for too long, so sorry. Okay, so the MCAT didn't go that well. I kept studying and I needed to move on. So another thing that I'll add in here that I did was AVRCAMS, the annual biomedical research conference for minority students. If you haven't been, you gotta go. You gotta talk to someone at your school. It's such a great opportunity to present your research, see just massive amounts of other URMs, students who look like you doing great things. And also it's a great networking opportunity. And you can also talk to a lot of the graduate and medical schools that you may be interested in. So you absolutely need to go if you have the opportunity. During my junior year, I also found a breast cancer research lab at Hampton University, which was great because I wanted to do more of the research that I was, had this growing passion for. And then in January of that junior year, I took the MCAT again, and I thankfully did a lot better. So I'm always very open to sharing about that because I know that some students, maybe you do need to retake it. And I just want people to know that it's okay if you have to retake the MCAT. No one ever asked me twice about, why did you take it more than once? And it, my score was competitive enough, and that was that. So don't be embarrassed. Just study and do it again, so that you can have the best opportunity for success. And then the following summer, I returned to work in the Devi lab in breast cancer research. Another really productive summer, just doing what doing the research that I loved. And then finally, I was ready for MD PhD applications before my final year of college, because I figured that after doing all this research that I love, I knew that I wanted to keep doing it, but I knew that I still had that passion for medicine. And so, this for me was the best choice. Went to AVRCAMS again, another great time. Finally graduated in May 2016, and then matriculated into the Vanderbilt MSTP in 2016. So this was just kind of my pre-Vanderbilt story. And there, as you can see here, there were a lot of places where things didn't go, step one, step two, step three, like I thought it would be. And it's okay because I know a lot of you are probably at various points in this journey where you're trying to figure out, where am I? What am I doing? What do I want to do? What do I like? And that's okay. But you just got to take the time to figure that stuff out, talk to people, ask questions, and learn what you can. So, just my sticky notes for this portion of the talk include doing work that you're passionate about. Microbiology was not for me, computational research was not for me. And so I did find what I do love. And so I'm much more productive because of it. The second thing I'd say is to continue to seek out research opportunities, especially if you're at a non research intensive undergraduate school. So, any chance you can get to be doing, getting a longitudinal experience, that's just going to make you look even more competitive. And it's already a great step that you're here at Vanderbilt this summer. And then my second questions are kind of, I won't go too much into this, the golden question of why the MD or the, PhD or why both. But as I talk to people, I've kind of settled that I can easily recommend them to be able to answer these questions. So you'll ask, is an MD necessary? I think that one's the most simple out of any of them. If you want to practice medicine and treat patients, you have to be legally licensed to do so. So if you know that you want to um, treat patients, then it's a yes. You need that training and that degree. The PhD is a little bit harder, but the simplest thing I can say is that I chose the PhD because of the training itself. I wanted to learn to think like a scientist. I wanted to learn how to write grants, to navigate scientific problems, formulate hypotheses, etc. And I really wanted it to be a focused training, and I thought the PhD was the best way to do that. Because let's be honest, there are MDs that I know that do research and you'd never know they didn't have a PhD. So you can get the training, but I know I wanted it very early on and I wanted it very focused and kind of structured. So that's why the PhD was right for me. And we can talk. If anyone has more questions about that, I'm always happy to talk about it. Okay, so if you fell asleep, here's some cute pictures of my puppy to wake you up and make you smile, or just put you back to sleep like she is in this picture. So, yeah. All right, let's see. I think we'll be all right. So, for the remaining time, I want to go through my professional journey, which I guess I'm saying really starts at the beginning of my Vanderbilt training. So I finally made it, right? Here's uh, my classmates, and my family on our white coat ceremony day. Looking all happy and eager and just excited for everything. And then here is our white coat ceremony. You'll see our white coats gained a few inches because this was at the start of our graduate school phase. So, we are not actually doctors with our long white coats. But, I made it, and it was so great to finally be here after all the challenges that I went through in undergrad, trying to figure out what I even wanted to do with my life. So, again, starting off, I honestly, I knew how the program was structured, but I don't think I had too many expectations, except that, I was like, there's a timeline of things and goals that I need to hit. So, I matriculated in 2016. I knew that there was, first year of medical school, second year of medical school with clerkships. At some point, I would transition to go to grad school. I'd have to complete some qualifying exams. I'd do some science or whatever. I'd defend my dissertation, finish up graduate school, return to medical school, apply to residency. And at the start of my MSTP training, I really thought that I wanted to go into internal medicine, so I would apply to that residency. And so the goal of this talk is that things aren't linear, so things didn't go, quite so cleanly as is written here. So we'll just go through that now. So graduate school has been a huge reality check. And none of this is meant to scare people, but it's really just to be honest that it's okay if your journey is not linear and it doesn't look like everyone else's. So I really hope that this is a source of encouragement for people, whatever stage you're at. So I started med school, cool. M1 year, challenging, but I made it. M2 year, which is our clinical rotations, remind you, I thought I wanted to go into internal medicine, but I absolutely fell in love with pediatrics during my pediatrics rotation. I also found that I think adults are incredibly annoying. They just complain all the time. Yet a child a day after surgery is sitting up in bed wanting to play, and a couple days later they're rolling down the hallway with their tricycle or something. And that just gave me a lot of energy and I loved it, and I'm passionate about pediatrics. So not the hugest, detour, but something that I didn't expect. So I took my step one board exams in July 2018, had to do that. And then I joined my graduate lab with Dr. Johnson in August of 2018 after, going through rotations and things. I did my step two, the board exams during that first year of grad school. Cool. And then I kind of heavily began working on my original thesis project. Emphasis on the original because clearly things don't go the way they are originally anticipated. So in April of my first year, I submitted a application for an F30 fellowship from the NIH, and it wasn't even scored. So that happens, I learned, but it was a huge blow to my confidence and just, you know, kind of how I felt about being in grad school, because my application didn't even get reviewed because I guess, for whatever reason, they just didn't think it was quite of the quality to, have a full review. So that was super disappointing, and I put so much work into it, but I had to move on. And it happens sometimes, especially in research. So I moved on, did my qualifying exams. And then, so in July 2019, I had phase one of my qualifying exam. In October of the same year, I didn't pass phase two of my qualifying exam. And that was the first time I can honestly say I felt like I failed something ever. And it was so devastating to me. Not to get like emotional now, but it was a really tough time. And so I share that because things don't always go the way you plan, despite how hard you work, but you will make it through. Like, you just have to keep working and you'll make it through. And people like me are here to support you, and to show you that you're not the only one who's going through it. December 2019, right after my, phase two qualifying exam didn't go so well, I resubmitted my F30, and it just didn't get a score that was technically low enough to score, based on how they do their scoring. But in the end, it didn't get funded, and that was disappointing. But again, it happens. Like, RPIs all the time are getting grants rejected, and they're having to resubmit them. So it was a reality check, but I just had really supportive mentors and a committee that, helped to keep me going despite these things that were happening. Soon after that, we realized that we need to change my project, because after my grant was not funded twice, and we also were having difficulties getting a manuscript submitted and accepted that was related to this project. We were just like, people are not very receptive of this science. And so it was going to make it really hard for me to eventually graduate and maybe public. So I had a major project change right after my F30 didn't get funded, and right in between needing to pass my qualifying exam so I can be a PhD candidate. But it worked out, and I tried to work twice as hard, and I did pass my qualifying exam in February of 2020. And then right after that, COVID decided that it was a great time to ruin everybody's lives. So, the pandemic happened. And then in the middle of that, I had a total project switch. My PI emailed me and was like, I think we need to switch you to the PTHRP project. So without going into too much of the details, because that's not really the focus of what I'm doing right now, I went through major project changes very quickly, and it was a lot to deal with and navigate. But I do believe that in the end, it will be for my betterment. Um, so I just had to keep going. Pick a new project during the pandemic, write a whole review, think up experiments, and hope my committee is okay with it because they didn't even know that I was totally switching my project yet. Um, but I got through it, and things have gotten so much better. So I'm currently a G4. I've earlier this year published 2 reviews. I'm making progress on my thesis project, and I've had some slight changes, and had to reformat my aims, change my hypotheses, but it's okay. And I'm also currently working on 2 first author manuscripts. And then I'm also going to be attending a number of conferences this year to present the work. Um, and then my goal, fingers crossed, is that next spring I will be defending my dissertation, returning to medical school, and then applying to residency where after graduation, my goal is to start a pediatrics residency, hopefully, summer 2023, if all goes planned. But we know now that not everything goes planned, and that's okay. Um, so, just with a couple minutes left, my sticky notes for this last part of my journey are that, again, do work that you're passionate about. And if you find something that you're passionate about, keep going for it. And it's okay if your interests change, but to be the most productive, you have to love what you do. Keep going and don't give up. Like, I've been thrown so many curveballs since grad school started, but you just got to keep going, and you got to find people that will support you as you're pushing through, because you absolutely can make it. You do just need a supportive network behind you. And then lastly, I think it's lastly, yeah, your path may look different from that of others, but it's exactly where you belong. So I went through this period where all my classmates were passing their qualifying exams, and moving on to committee meetings. And I'm still like, man, I don't even have a project that I think anybody cares about or likes. And so you are where you belong, and you will end up where you need to be. Not to be, all hand wavy philosophical, but you will end up exactly where you need to be. So, and then just a last plug on work-life balance, because I think Vanderbilt does a great job of that. Here's a escape game during the pandemic with my lab. This is senior ball with my, or not senior ball, cadaver ball, like med school prom with my classmates. Other outings, here's College Cup. This is a Top Golf kind of night with some of my grad school friends, and etc. And then I also did get married during the pandemic. So you can have a life, and I think Vanderbilt is a great place for supporting you through the academic journey, but also we have fun here too, and we're not just, work robots. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions if anyone thinks of me or thinks of any, but I can also add my email address. So if people have other conversations they want to have, always let me know. Yeah. Okay. Let's see here. I see a question from Brooklyn. Do you work directly with cancer patients for your research? So I don't work directly with cancer patients. Because we're not like a clinical trials lab, and my mentor, she has a PhD, so she's not like a oncologist or anything, but we do work with a lot of patient samples all the time, and she also has a bunch of collaborators who are oncologists, and so I get a lot of that clinical exposure, clinical relationships, and through some of those collaborations, I've actually gone to work in clinic with some of them a little bit too. So, but there are plenty of graduate students who work in labs that may directly interact with, patients related to the research. Yeah, and I'm gonna type my email address in here really quick, if if anyone has another question, you can put it in the chat, but also email Aisha or I.
Let's wait a few seconds to see if there's one more question for Courtney, and then if not, I think we can wrap up for the day. Oh, yep. Yes, I see this question. Go for it.
Oh, so what advice would you give to give to undergrads when navigating through the pre-med journey for those interested in MDPhD?
Just do you have a specific area or a specific question or something that you're thinking of with regarding the application process?
Kind of avoiding burnout, be able to meet the goals that you want to meet.
Yeah, that's definitely difficult because if you're still in school, you've got to make sure that you graduate, complete your coursework, study for the MCAT, write your essays. So definitely pacing yourself, because I know it's challenging and that's a lot to be juggling all at one time. Always ask for help whenever you need it. I read people's essays a lot too. I think I'm pretty good at writing, so I actually do read, MCAT or sorry, medical school applications. So get plenty of people to review it who you trust, get their input and get their help. And always just, you got to take breaks. Sometimes it's just such a hard day, but you got to take breaks and you can't stop doing the things that you love just because you're so busy, because your mental health and your physical health can take too much of a toll. So yeah.
Thank you, Courtney and Aisha. So thank you to both of our speakers, and thank you to everyone for attending. And hopefully everyone has a great 4th of July holiday weekend this weekend.
Check out our website to find recordings of all of our videos. We'll get them posted about a week after each of the presentations. We can't wait to see you!